All right. Welcome in, everyone. I think we will go ahead and get started. Welcome to the R Farmy USP 800 Preparedness Lunch and Learn. Whether it's your first time with us today or your second or your third, we are so glad you're choosing to spend your time with us today. Today is our third webinar, and we will be diving into the world of AoRs, assessment of risks. We're really glad to be talking about this topic today. And as we thought about the reason for creating this webinar series, we really wanted to bring conversation, community, education to the world of USP 800 as compliance is coming up in November. And we're really glad that you're becoming a part of this community with us. We're excited to share what we know and what we've learned. And for today, just some housekeeping. As we are going through the webinar, we will be having some polls just so we can learn more from you and how we can help you. So please make sure to engage in those polls. We will also have Q&As. So please make sure to ask any questions you may have as we're going along, and we'll make sure to touch on those. And also feel free to email us after the webinar is over if any questions come to mind, and we'll get to them next webinar. But again, thank you for being here today. And now I will introduce our speakers for today. First, we have Laura Paxton. She's the CEO of R Farmy. She's been working in healthcare for over 35 years. And we are so excited to hear from her today and all of her expertise when it comes to formulary, USP 800 compliance, hazardous drugs. So thank you, Laura. And next we have Charlene. Charlene Kristen is a customer experience specialist with R Farmy. She actually used to be one of our customers and she worked as a certified pharmacy technician for 20 years. And we're excited to hear from her today as well. So again, thank you. And now I will hand it off to you, Laura.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for showing up today and participating in this webinar. Like Carrie said, when we started thinking about doing these webinars, our main reason was that we didn't see a lot of conversation going on about USP 800 and helping one another. It's really hard to find helpful information out on the internet from your peers, which I've been in this business a long time, and it's the first time I've ever seen a topic where the pharmacy is not sharing so readily with one another. So we decided, since we've had the opportunity to see hundreds of hospitals' information with USP 800, we decided to share what we know. And granted, there's a lot more out there that we don't know, but we're going to share with you what we know and let you see if any of that could be helpful. This is our third webinar, and we have 5 more coming. Next week, we'll do one, requirements for a drug assessment. In May, we'll do creating and updating your hazardous drug list, and then we'll do safety information in the EHR. And when inspectors come knocking, and then finally on May 25th, we'll do a wrap up. So sign up for those. If you find something valuable, if there's something that you want to hear about that you're not seeing here, please let us know, because if we know the answer and can find the answer, we're going to share it with you, because that's our goal, to instruct and inform as much as possible. And we really wanted to talk about this AoR topic today because of all the questions that we get as we work with our clients on USP 800 projects. The assessment of risk is something that you hear so much about, and really there's just not a lot of information out there. We've been working on this topic of USP 800 since March of 2018. So we've had the opportunity to see a lot of evolution on this topic. And when we first started working on it, what you would see frequently were health systems and hospitals who would say, oh, we're just going to do everything the way NIOSH says to do it, and we're not really going to bother with creating assessments of risk. And then the reality of the fact that nurses are not going to really do everything that NIOSH says. So maybe we need to write some assessments of risk around that. And oh, wow, our PPE costs have just exploded, and I'm getting to meet with the VP of Finance. So maybe we need to write some assessments of risk. We have had clients who have written assessments of risks for every drug, and we have had clients who've written assessments of risk for 0 drugs or 5 drugs. We're seeing an evolution on the people who have done fewer assessments moving toward writing more assessments of risk. So there are no wrong answers in this. other than just not being prepared. That's a wrong answer, but we just want to show you what we're seeing now. This is a webinar where you are going to see a lot of pictures. Okay, so remember as you look at this that we will have the video up in 24 to 48 hours, so you can go back and actually look at the video and start and stop it to see some of the visuals, because we'll go through them pretty quickly and there may be some information in here that will be valuable for you later. But if you go to rfarmy.com, you can find the video channel that has all the videos for these webinars. So let's get going. We're going to start out our webinar with a poll. How many AoRs? Oh, I'm sorry, Carrie, you do the poll. You're muted, Carrie.
Thank you, Laura. So we're going to start off with this first poll. How many AoRs has your organization completed? So your answer choices are 0, 1 to 20, 21 to 50, and 51 to 150. So if you'll please take a second to answer. Give it a few more seconds. All right, going to share the results. Should be showing up on your screen, but seems the majority, 60%, answered 1 to 20 AoRs and 40% said 51 to 150. Thank you guys for answering. Back to you,
Thanks.
Laura.
Now, we wanted to start out this webinar with this question because it is rather informative. And now I'm going to ask Charlene to tell us, Charlene, of the organizations that we've installed so far, what's the average, what are you seeing with the number of AoRs that our clients have created?
Thank you, Laura. Well, let's keep in mind that there are, on the NIOSH list alone, there are 300 drugs. Now we know that not all of those drugs, as a matter of fact, probably about half of those drugs are not allowed an AoR. So they're either HD APIs or they are drugs that require manipulation prior to dispensing. So we have some clients that have decided to go by NIOSH Table 5 and completely follow the USP or the NIOSH handling guides. The most common reason for that I'm hearing is that it leads to confusion, or it leads to less confusion for the staff as far as knowing how to handle different drugs. And that goes back to the handling guides or the handling information not being at the point of care and being difficult to find. That being said, like you said, Laura, I wouldn't want to be the one that gets called into a meeting with the materials management or the CFO to explain why our cost of chemotherapy related PPE is so high. So how many AoRs are we seeing? We are seeing, like I said, some that have none. But those are very few. And as we go along, the numbers seem to increase. So we have some as low as in the 50s and some that are as many AoRs as 129. But like you said, those some people are putting just a blanket statement there that says a AoR is not allowed for this drug. So when you look at that and they are putting that statement there, then they are basically assessing all their drugs.
All right, thanks, Charlene. So when you're creating an AoR, there are certain things that you must include. And one of those things, type of hazardous drug, is it a group 1, 2, or 3? The dosage form, what's the risk of exposure, packaging, manipulation, and alternative containment strategies. So what we're about to roll into is we're going to be showing you examples of different clients' assessments of risk. And these are our clients and what they're thinking and how they're thinking. You're going to see some group 1 risk assessments. And even though most of those medications don't get a risk assessment, there is always information that perhaps the pharmacy needs to communicate to the end user regarding these types of medication. And here's an example of one. And you can see that it's an injectable, it's a high hazard, and there are no exceptions to the full 800 handling. But in this instance, this client wanted to communicate how to get rid of the waste for this medication. And notice what you're seeing here is actually from our software, and the way they wrote it in our software, and the exposure risk is also from our software. Charlene, do you have anything to add to this?
No. Basically, this is just one of those clients that decided to, whether there's an assessment of risk or whether there's alternative containment strategies or not, they've just decided to go ahead and put this information in there.
Okay. And now we're going to look at another one. And it is another one of those group 1 drugs. And I'm going to let Charlene talk about methotrexate because she's very familiar with it.
Thank you, Laura. So all of the USP 800 webinars or classes that I've been to, methotrexate seems to be the one that they pull out as an example when they begin to talk about AoRs. And that's because methotrexate is a group 1 drug that comes in multiple forms. So what they are trying to show is that for the injectable, of course, you can't do an AoR for that. Methotrexate is an anti-neoplastic drug. It does require, the injectable does require manipulation prior to dispensing. So you are not allowed an AoR for that. But as you see in this instance, for the oral preparations, they are providing an AoR for that. So this is their handling guide information based off of, this is their handling guide information for administration based off of the information they provided in their AoR.
All right, thank you.
And
here's another example of a client of ours, group 1 drug, no assessment allowed, but this is the information that they wanted to communicate to their end user at the point of care. And now we're going to take some questions. And I see that we have one question. And the question is, what drugs need assessments of risk?
So basically, we kind of already touched on that, but it's, well, we didn't really get into it, but any drug that is not a hazardous active pharmaceutical ingredient, and those are usually seen in compounding facilities designated as 503B facilities, but occasionally you'll see some active pharmaceutical ingredients in the inpatient pharmacy and your infusion clinics, but more than not, that's in the compounding facilities, and any anti-neoplastic that requires manipulation. So if it is basically any admixing of anti-neoplastics, you cannot provide an AoR for those. And as far as what you can have an AoR for, any final dosage forms, compounded and convenient or conveniently manufactured products that you are dispensing as in the package that it came in, such as unit dose products, you can certainly have an AoR for those. And basically that's it, but that's a big list right there.
Okay, Charlene, there's another question for you. Are you seeing hospitals hire someone to write assessments of risk? Do you know of any companies or consultants that can write those for me?
That's a great question. I wish that I could, off the top of my head, tell you some companies out there. but I have not seen anybody offering to write assessments of risk. I have seen quite a few places where you can find templates to create your own, but nobody that is offering to do that. Now, there may be some consultants out there that are offering that service, but I'm not aware of that. Certainly we do that, or not necessarily write the AoRs, but we can assist in the process when we take on a new client.
Thank you, Charlene. All right, now we're going to move into the groups 2 and 3 assessments of risk and let you see some examples of these. Once we've gone through these examples where you can see these assessments of risk, we'll move into the containment strategies, and you'll be able to see different ways that people do that. And as you look at these, notice that the table that you see here is actually the table that comes out of the software, and this is how our clients are communicating this information. And now Charlene's going to talk to you about what this really means.
Okay, so for this first one, you see testosterone, and you see 4 different formulations of testosterone in this particular assessment of risk. What you don't see in this assessment of risk is the, it doesn't have the NIOSH group in there, but the header for our software always has the name of the drug and the group. So, as well as the therapeutic class. So you're just not seeing that here, but it is involved in that. So you're seeing the packaging, you're seeing what the pharmacy containment strategy is, and what the nursing containment strategy is.
All right, thank you. And now we have testosterone from a different client.
Yes, so this testosterone, notice that this is 2 topical formulations, but this particular client also has a retail department or a retail pharmacy within their organization. So they've called out retail storage here and retail packaging and dispensing. And notice, because they have not called out any inpatient information here, they have also made the nursing information not applicable, as well as the sterile compounding information not applicable, because retail is certainly not involved in any of that.
And now we're going to go and we're going to look at some templates. Oh no, we have one more client that you can see the way they are thinking about their risk assessment.
Yes, so this is dutasteride, and the you can see that they have the dosage form, the NIOSH category, the risk of exposure, and then this client decided to put the HD qualification information came directly from the supplemental information column in NIOSH. So they just decided to go and paste that information there, which is perfectly fine. That's how this drug was, how it qualified to be a hazardous drug. Then they have the receiving and packaging information right there for the area, as well as the assessment as to the fact that it's a unit dose package, so it mitigates risk to the personnel. Then they have the inpatient and retail storage information, as well as the inpatient and retail packaging and dispensing information. Notice that the inpatient packaging and dispensing, it says it's unit dose, and if the unit dose isn't available, to unit dose with a manual packing system, because we don't like to use those automated packaging machines for hazardous drugs, so we don't have any cross contamination. Also, for the retail, they say only whole tablets and capsules are dispensed. And because this does have some inpatient information, they're letting the nurse know to not crush or open that capsule, as well as that nursing will not touch the capsule.
All right, thank you. And now we have some templates that we found out there, and Charlene, I'm gonna let you talk to that.
This assessment of risk template here, not sure where it came from. It may have been early on in NIOSH or USP, but this particular one is basically a fill in the blank. You fill in the drug, the dosage form. And then you see at the bottom, they have all the different activities for the containment strategy information. So the activities, and then it calls out how USP 800 says you're supposed to perform those activities. And they have in the columns there, if you're going to follow USP 800 for that activity, you check that box. If that activity does not apply to this drug, you check that box. And then if you are going to provide an exemption for that activity, you put that information there. And then this is one where we it's basically a template, and we've kind of populated a few things just to show you how it works. So you would put the name of the drug, and we've put in there for the route of administration, oral and gastric tube and liquid for the form, and then the exposure risk. So the way you can use this as a template is if say it's a liquid, then oral and gastric tube is maybe the only two routes of administration you're going to have for that. And then dosage form was always going to be liquid. Liquid could be a suspension or a solution, but basically it's a liquid. You're going to have exposure risk. So think about, is the exposure risk for an oral liquid always going to be dermal or inhalation? Then that could be part of your template. Is the reason for exemption because it's always dispensed from pharmacy as a final dose? And do the alternative containment strategies work for all of these drugs you're going to be assessing? So as much information as you can put in there that is going to be the same, that's how you do that. And then down below, what you're not seeing on this document, but you see the header that says handling inpatient ambulatory retail specialty. So this organization does have a retail pharmacy. So they had a column for retail specialty and basically spelled out in that column how they handled different activities, as well as the inpatient and ambulatory, how they differ.
Charlene, didn't this come to us in, weren't they using Excel for this table? Or did they use Word?
They use Word for this table.
Word, okay. Okay. Oh, it's a poll, Carrie.
All right, here's our second poll for today. Our question is, who writes AoRs in your organization? And you should see the poll popping up on your screen right now. So please, if you could take a second and answer, that'd be great. And I'll give a little more time on that. Okay, thank you, everyone. Take a look at our results. So seems for the most part, y'all's designated person is the one who's writing AoRs. And then secondly, we're seeing a hazardous drug oversight committee and an other. Thank you for answering.
Thank you, Carrie.
And now we'll go on to Charlene to talk about containment strategies.
Thank you, Carrie. So this is I started to say typical, but it's not necessarily a typical spreadsheet, but it follows along the same lines as a lot of spreadsheets that we see come across my computer, basically, but and it's color coded. And we have some other examples of that I'll show you later, but color coding seems to be the way to go when they do these spreadsheets and they have one that lists the drug, and then you follow along the row that has the drug, and you see the different colors, which are supposed to tell you what your handling guide information is and what your basically all of the containment strategies for those drugs. So you can see that it goes into the pharmacy you see the different buckets, pharmacy bucket and nursing bucket. So if you go to the next page and you see the pharmacy containment strategies, then you have more color coding and it correlates, it's like a legend, and it correlates with the previous spreadsheet, or I guess they were multiple tabs on the spreadsheet. So they correlate with the different drugs, and you basically see how to handle all these drugs. And I just think this is setting somebody up for a lot of work to try to figure out how to get to that information. And then, of course, then on the next slide, we can see the nursing containment strategies. And notice here, they did kind of try to simplify it as far as, you've still got the drug form over there. So you have to refer back to that original spreadsheet to see the drug name and all of that. It's just a lot to go through to try to get your information. And just think about you're sitting there with your MAR and trying to just give this patient a medication.
Oh my, and they were beautiful. They were beautiful charts. I can't even imagine the hours that went into creating that.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
The work that went into it and the maintenance of that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So now we're going to go and look at some, okay. So we're going to look at the containment examples from that very client using our tables. So if you look at the administration for abacavir, you see the different forms for abacavir. And based on whichever tab you're looking at for the form, you're going to see how the nurse needs to protect themselves when they administer that drug. You also see the containment philosophy or rules in this organization for disposal. And next, you see receiving and storage for a non-anti-neoplastic and a reproductive risk drug. Here are the rules in this organization for receiving and storage, and the containment for preparation for oral non-anti-neoplastic reproductive risk that belong in pharmacy bucket 2. This is how that information is being communicated on these tables. And finally, for transport, you can't see all of the forms for transport, but you can see what the policies are around transport of non-anti-neoplastic and reproductive risk drugs through the pneumatic tube system in their organization. And now we have another moment for questions. And let me see if we've got any. Oh, does RPharmy provide AoRs, or could you help us write them? The answer to that question is we do not provide AoRs, because that's something that has to be made with decisions in your organization. But can we help you with them? Yes, we can. We can show you what other people have done, and that's how you can form your own opinions about that, because there's so much information out there, and you all have your own SOPs in your organization. And so you're going to have to make those decisions, but you can see what other people have done, and that can help you sometimes make good decisions. Charlene, is there anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when we do take on a new client, we certainly help in the process. A lot of times we see spreadsheets that are directly related to AoRs, and we kind of decipher that information and drill it down and try to make it as easily readable and accessible for that end user.
Thank you. And now that's the end of our topic today. I hope that there have been some things in here that have been useful to you. Charlene, thank you. Carrie Fleming, thank you so much. And to all of you who tuned in to listen and learn today, we appreciate your attendance. Once again, if you have questions that didn't get answered, and we will be sending out an email with all the questions that were asked and the answers attached in the next few days, you'll be getting that email. You also can go and look at this webinar on YouTube and actually pause it and look at some of the screens, because there are some of those screens that might be helpful with you as you come up with your own idea on how to communicate with this information. So we thank you for your time. You can sign up for the upcoming webinars by using this QR code. You can also email either me or Charlene to ask questions or ask for more information. We'll be happy to help you. We thank you so much for your time. We hope you've gotten something valuable out of it, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.